It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline. Brought to you by the Westgate Las Vegas, home of the world's largest race and sportsbook and the Super Contest.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
Presented by WagerTalk.com.
And here we go with the Friday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. Happy to have you with us. Hope you had a great 4th of July. This is our final show for a week. We will be out of action next week for the All-Star break, taking the entire week off, so we'll be back on Monday, the 15th of July. But we got a lot of stuff lined up today. Ralph Michaels is here. Ari Platinum's producing. I'm Dave Cokin. And joining us right now at the top of the show from Superbook USA, Ed Salmons is with us. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Doing good, Dave. How are you today?
Good. Busy. Irritated with the drive-thru at a local coffee place where I managed to get behind the person who has to order 8 drinks. Don't you love those people?
That's the worst.
They are the absolute worst. It's like go inside. Anyway, well, that's the way it goes sometimes. But I made it. I made it here, and we're ready to go. Earlier this week, we did the American League mid-season rundown. So we're going to get the National League mid-season rundown in today. We're going to go through each team, talk a little bit about them from a betting and analysis standpoint. You guys ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll start it off in the National League East, and we'll start at the top with the Atlanta Braves. You know, Ed, I wasn't sure that this team could win the division title again this year. I thought, they might have some holes in the pitching, but actually they do. But the offense has been so good, it's not seeming to matter.
Yeah, no, Atlanta, I was looking through, they've scored the second most runs behind Colorado in the National League, and obviously the offense is carrying them right now, and, they're 6 up on Washington, who's definitely charging right now.
The Braves, 19-5 as a home favorite, their last 24 in that role, and I tweeted out a chart since June 1st today. If you want to look on Twitter, the Braves are number 1 in profit, plus 12.95 units, having gone 22-9 since June the 1st.
Ed, is it showing up at the future book at all with them?
Not really. I mean, the Braves we really don't write a lot of money on the Braves, and they're a huge winner for us. So, we're happy that the Braves are doing well.
Well, if we'd have done this rundown a couple of weeks ago, we wouldn't be talking about them quite this quickly. But the Washington Nationals have ascended to second place in the National League East, and they're a wild card team right now, one of the 2 wild card teams. How surprising is that to you, Ed?
Honestly, it's not, because I was telling everyone here at work, this is probably maybe the very beginning of June. I was looking through their schedule in June, and it was just a cake schedule. And I said, if you guys, I think betting the Nationals at 30 and 35 to 1 to win the National League right now is just going to be the top number you're going to see. This is the time to bet them. And, since then they've really played well, and obviously their 3 top starting pitchers are just pitching phenomenal right now, and they're making a huge run. And, Atlanta, they're only 5 back on the loss column, so that's very doable right now, but at least a wild card seems like it's a good chance.
Really. And it's funny, I was talking to Brian Leonard doing a podcast this morning, and he was relating a story where he happened to be in another casino in town on a particular night. This is going back, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 weeks. And he sees the Washington Nationals sitting at 70 to 1 and says, boy, with their talent, I ought to take a shot at that. And he didn't, and is kind of regretting it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I can remember last year, it was about towards the end of May, the South Point put the Dodgers at 40 to 1 to win the World Series. And I bet that, and I'm like, this is just crazy. I don't care that Dodgers are 10 under 500. Season's just way too long to be going that high on a team with that kind of pedigree.
And we know when you get to the playoffs, you need those 3 pitchers, and the Nationals can compare to anyone. We said the Braves have 22 wins since June 1st. That was the most in Major League Baseball. Well, the Nationals are number 2 with a 21-8 record. So, while they have not caught up to the Braves, because basically the same record, they've put themselves in that wild card spot. The Nationals as a favorite, 20 wins and 4 losses their last 24 games.
And they get to face Kansas City heading into the All-Star break, so really a legitimate chance to sweep another series. The Phillies, meanwhile, I think they're one of the teams that falls into the I'm puzzled category. Ed, they've got a lot of talent, so is that a team that maybe has the makings of one that can make a second-half run, or are they just short in a couple of spots?
I think they're short in a couple spots, to be honest. Nola's started to really pitch well lately, but other than him, you just have no idea of what you're getting with the starting pitching. And then the bullpen keeps blowing games with leads. So I really don't have the same confidence with the Phillies as I did with Washington.
They started off mediocre, and down the stretch, they've even been worse. In that June 1st time frame again, they're number 28 in all of baseball at 12-18, minus 9.9 units.
Well, we know the Mets have a multitude of problems, the worst of which is the bullpen. One thing that we'll throw in here as a note, heading into this final weekend before the All-Star break, a lot of bullpens will be fortified this weekend because they will use starting pitchers in bullpen roles if necessary. Why not? They've got a whole week off coming up. And as an example, the Mets have Steven Matz in the bullpen for this weekend. I don't know that it makes a difference short term, and I don't think it makes a difference long term either. This team's a mess, and I'm thinking that based on the way they looked prior to the season, this is not a bad result for the house.
No, I mean, the Mets are just, it's head-scratching that you could have, DeGrom, who's such a great pitcher, and, Wheeler's all right. I don't think he's had the year he expected. Syndergaard's been hurt left and right, but he still has great stuff. But, some of the acquisitions they made, Cano is just terrible. He can't hit. He can't field. But you look at the team, you got McNeil's hitting like 340, and Alonso's close to 30 homers. How is this team 9 games under 500? The manager has to be fired. They have to do something.
They have 21 blown saves. In baseball over the last 4 years, the team that has had the most blown saves was San Francisco 4 years ago with 30. So the Mets have 21 at the break. 30's been the most for an entire season.
Wow.
And add in the Mets are last in baseball in fielding.
That's not a good combination. And then there's the Marlins, who are, I don't know, maybe a little better than expected. I think it's fair to say that they were a lock, basically, to be one of the 2 worst teams in baseball going into this season. And they're not by any means good, Ed, but I think maybe they're a little more competitive than some of us thought they'd be, including myself. I have the under on the win total on them, and that looks like it's going to be dicey. And I guess the reason is better than expected starting pitching.
Yeah, the Marlins are kind of the team that everyone thought, would be neck and neck with the Orioles, and they haven't been close to that. But, for some reason they struggle at home. They've had a much better away record than home record, but they're definitely a team that, at any time they can, that they're just a scrappy team. I mean, they're not a good team, but they play you hard, and I think that goes to the manager. That Mattingly's doing a halfway decent job there because it is a lot of young players. But, there's something about the Marlins that they're not a walkover team. Even if you sweep them, they play you tough. So I think the Marlins are definitely headed in the right direction.
From an odds maker standpoint, the fact that the Marlins and the Rays over in the American League have no crowd support at all, does that factor into the daily line on these teams when they're at home?
I would say probably not. I mean, maybe 5 cents, but I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't. I think the thing batting last is just what, does the price.
Ed, you talked about the Marlins on the road. 13-10 their last 23 road games, and at the price you're getting them, I mean, you are making some money. Since that June 1st mark that I've been talking about, Marlins are actually plus 3.2 units with a 13-17 record. So a couple games under the Mendoza line, but as a dog in every game, if they get close to 500, you're going to make quite a bit of money on them.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Marlins, they play you tough on the road. I know the Nationals just swept them, but those games weren't, walkover games. They played them hard. They just happened to lose them all, that's all.
Yeah, they really do battle. We're talking with Ed Salmons from Superbook USA. You can follow Ed on Twitter at LASED. And let's go to the National League Central, where the Cubs are clinging to a very short lead. And I'll just throw an opinion in here. I thought they made a mistake giving Kimbrel a 3-year contract. He was in significant decline down the stretch last year. Has lost a tick off his fastball, and his other stuff just isn't what it was. This could end up being a disaster for him because they're handing him the ninth inning immediately. He's not getting the job done. Now, that may change once he gets some innings under his belt. It also may go the other way, and it could conceivably cost the Cubs the division title if they're relying on him to close games and he can't get it done.
Yeah, you're so spot on. Last year in the second half with the Red Sox, especially in the playoff games, I mean, every time he pitched, there'd be bases loaded, and he would just walk. It was just crazy. And it got to the point where the Red Sox were afraid to use him in those save situations. And then, the Cubs have had just some head-scratching signings between Darvish and now they signing Kimbrel. It just, it goes against everything that Epstein's done through his career. And the Cubs are like building a team that needs going to be, essentially taken apart at some point here because it doesn't really make sense.
The Cubs and Milwaukee, both teams that have coming back to the pack. I mean, we have a division now, top to bottom, only 3.5 games from the Cubs to the Cincinnati Reds. And again, the team we're going to talk about, two teams with identical records. The Cubs plus 54 runs coming into today. Milwaukee, this next team we're going to talk about, minus 7 runs with the exact same record, a 61-run difference between those two teams.
You know what the big difference to me as we go to the Brewers is the Brewers don't feel like they have to hit home runs with their moves. And I'm sure they're going to buy somebody at the deadline, but it probably won't be a big name. It'll be somebody who just fits to what they need. They're a smart organization.
No, I mean, Milwaukee made a head-scratching move about a month ago when they sent the second baseman down because I think Shaw was back. He had hurt his wrist, and they put him back in the line. The guy's hitting 160, and the other kid was just hitting the cover off the ball, hitting for power. And they weakened two positions defensively, and I didn't think that was a smart move. And I do think Milwaukee can add a part because Lorenzo Cain's hurt his thumb, and he's not the same player that he's been. And I really think Milwaukee has the best team in this division, but they've been struggling to score runs of late, and I don't think that will continue. And I do think Milwaukee, by the end of the season, will win this division.
I mean, how important is Christian Yelich to this team? We're talking about Milwaukee getting outscored.
I got to tell you something.
And Yelich putting up the number. Imagine where they'd be without him having the season he's having.
I know there's $1 million prize, so it's tough to tell a guy you can't do that. If I were the Brewers, I might just hand him $1 million and say, we don't want you in the home run derby, okay? Take some time off. You already hurt your back twice, and we cannot afford to take a chance on you trying to kill the ball in this home run derby. If I've got a star player and I'm a contender, I do not want him in the home run derby.
You're hoping he goes out right away
against
Vlad, right?
Get out in the first round. What do you think, Ed?
I 100% agree with that. There's just nothing to gain from it. It just seems like there's so many of these guys that participate in the home run derby, and then the second half they just run out of gas.
It is the young man's game now.
Yeah, it really
the
is.
home run derby. Yeah.
Personally, Vladdy Guerrero, fine. I want to see Guerrero, and the team's not in contention.
Acuna's in it, right? He's a young guy. We want to.
Yeah, but I don't know. If I've got a contending team, I don't want my guy going wild, swinging hard, and maybe not getting hurt, but just doing something that can tweak him in the wrong direction. Speaking of tweaks in the wrong direction, I didn't know what to make of this team coming in. I think I do now. I don't think the Cardinals are very good, Ed. What do you think?
I'd like the Cardinals to win the division before the year started, and to me, it's head-scratching that they can't score any runs. Their pitching's been fine. They just can't score runs, and, unless that changes, they're obviously going to stick around this 500 mark, but they could ever score any amount of runs, they could win this division because it's, I think their pitching outside of Cincinnati is really solid.
Again, like the Brewers and the Cubs, they are under 500 one game since that June 1st period. Here's a total stat for St. Louis. Talk about not scoring runs. When the Cardinals are a favorite, they're 13, 25, and 2 over-under. So 25 unders and 13 overs in the 40 games.
The Pirates they're a pretty interesting team. They're kind of fun to watch. They've got some decent young talent. I hope they hold on to these guys because they could be a really nice team in a couple of years if they don't start selling off pieces again. The pitching needs improvement, no question about that. But I'm telling you what, Josh Bell leading the way. You got guys like Marte, an exciting young player, and Newman, some other guys here and there in the lineup. They're not in bad shape. And while I don't think they're a playoff team this year, Ed, they could be a legitimate spoiler while hanging around the race.
No, I mean, the Pirates are definitely a team, especially at home. Even though the home record's only 20-20, it feels like that, they're the kind of team you don't want to play, especially in Pittsburgh. But, Pittsburgh can definitely score some runs when they get that lineup cranked up. And, I don't think they're going to contend as the year goes on, but I think their future could be bright if they, like you said, if they make the correct moves. I mean, they just made an awful trade with Tampa last year, and that was, one that they can't get back. But, they still have a lot of young talent. So I think moving forward, if they